Hi guys, I'm gonna read you one of my favorite stories, and you can just keep checking back each day to see how many more chapters I've put on YouTube. Um, it's called Old Wolf, and it's by Avi. So I'm sure you guys have read some Avi. He's one of the best children's authors. If you haven't, definitely check out his work if you like this book. And the illustrator is Brian Flocka, and you can see look at the beautiful illustration of the cover itself. And then inside it's all pencil. Beautiful drawings. Old Wolf by Avi. Chapter 1. It was the starving time. Not the end of winter, not the start of spring. Not cold, not hot. Daylight and night dark were almost equal. Mud lay here and snow lay there. It was as if Earth herself couldn't decide between life and death. So if you think about it, it's that time before winter's complete. It's kind of like it is now, where it's still cold sometimes, and right before spring really comes in strong. And you can imagine, here we're experiencing a little more spring, but that time before everything starts to bloom, when the animals are probably having the hardest time finding food. In the high country, on a late afternoon in the month of March, the 8 gray wolves of the Iron Mountain pack, Tanagan, Garby, Nikito, Pildown, Debalt, and 2 pups, Connell and Onai, and the pack leader, the old wolf called Nishaba, lay before their den, a cold, shallow hollow in an outcropping of dull red rock. Nishaba was allowing his 2 5-week-old blue-eyed pups to tumble about him, yapping and squealing. Nonetheless, he was worried. The wolves in the pack had not eaten for 2 weeks. Not so much as a chipmunk or a vole. They were hungry and increasingly tense. The pups most concerned Nishaba. Originally, the litter had been 3 in number. 1 had died. Needing something more than Tanagan's milk to survive, Connell and Onai were already mouthing Nishaba's muzzle, their way of begging for meat. Where, he fretted, was he going to get it? While Nishaba lay deep in thought, Garby, 3 years old, and the largest, strongest wolf in the pack, suddenly called out, "Nishaba, it's time I was pack leader." Taken by surprise, but choosing to act as if he had not heard the challenge, Nishaba did not move. The other wolves did. The adults got up swiftly and backed away. Even the pups, sensing something amiss, scrambled to their mother, who nosed them behind her for safety. "You are the pack leader," Nishaba snarled Garby. "But you just sit here playing with your pups. You should be leading us in a hunt." Uncertain what the outcome might be if he fought the much younger wolf, Nishaba remained absolutely still. Garby, taking the old wolf's response to be weakness, leaped to his feet. "We're hungry, Nishaba," he barked. "We need food. If you can't lead us, I will." Nishaba spread his toes a little and gazed steadily at Garby with his deep golden eyes. "Are you challenging me?" he asked, in a soft, rumbly voice. He knew the answer to the question perfectly well, but he was hoping Garby would back down. All Garby did was snarl. "We know the truth, Nishaba. You're too old to lead." The words stung Nishaba. How dare that young wolf speak so? With a deep-chested growl, the old wolf came slowly to his feet and stood with his legs stiff, neck hairs raised, and tail high. He wanted to give Garby time to retreat. Garby, however, held his place and continued to stare directly into the pack leader's eyes, which among wolves is a blatant challenge. Admit it, Nishaba, he said. You've become useless. Nishaba drew back his lips to show his teeth and took a step toward the strong young wolf. The other wolves moved farther away. You don't frighten me, Nishaba, Garby spat out, knowing he must act quickly or lose all respect. Nishaba lunged at the young wolf's neck. With the deftness of youth, Garby slipped to one side, causing Nishaba to miss. At the same moment, he dove, gripped Nishaba's right front paw in his mouth, and bit down hard. Nishaba, ignoring the piercing pain, twisted about, reaching up and grasped Garby's neck in his jaws. He began to squeeze, tighter and tighter. With a gasp, Garby released Nishaba's paw and dropped to the ground. Panting, Nishaba let go of the young wolf but stood over him, undecided what to do. Choosing to be generous, as befit a pack leader, he lifted his bloody paw and placed it on the back of Garby's neck. The young wolf whined in pleading submission. That was enough for Nishaba. Pleased with himself, he stepped away but glanced poignantly at the other wolves. One by one, they lowered their heads and tails in wordless acknowledgement of the old wolf's leadership. Nishaba, not wishing to reveal how much pain his paw was giving him, how shaken he was, how rapidly his heart was pounding, turned his back on the pack and walked into the woods slowly. When he was some 40 yards from the den, beyond the pack's view, the old wolf flopped to the ground, stretched his feet before him, and allowed himself a deep, deep breath. All right, and this is the illustrator shows us Nishaba with the paw on Garby. Chapter 3. When Nishaba regained his composure, he examined his paw closely. Garby's bite had not just been painful, but deep. Far worse than the old wolf had realized. First, he licked, oh, hello, Copper. This is Copper. First, he licked his oozing blood, cleaning and soothing the hurt. Then he rested his chin on the earth between his front legs. Eyes closed, he sought to ignore the ache in his paw and the ache in his heart. How dare that young Garby challenge me? In the wild, wolves can live for a long time. They can live for as long as 9 years, sometimes more. Nishaba was 8. He weighed some 80 pounds, down from 110, and was 35 inches tall at his shoulder and just less than 4 feet long, not including his tail. The gray fur on his back, it had become much grayer as of late, and along the top of his tapered nose was soft and thick, except for the stiff gray muzzle hairs. His chest and belly fur were white, but tinged delicately with brown. His ears were dark and rounded, and his golden eyes, encircled by black markings, had ebony pupils. Nishaba was well aware that he had come close to being overthrown as pack leader. The next time Garby challenged him, as he surely would, the younger wolf might be successful. But the life of the Iron Mountain pack depends on me, Nishaba told himself. I am not too old to hunt or kill. But Nishaba knew that now he must prove it soon. Chapter 4. Next morning, when the first glow of dawn touched the summit of Iron Mountain, Nishaba stood on a high ridge looking down into a still, shadowy bend valley. Over the past 2 weeks, the old wolf had hunted for food many times in many places, but without success. The animals the wolves fed on, deer, elk, and moose, were more than likely in the lower valley, where they had gone to wait out winter. That area, however, was where humans lived. Though wolves never attacked humans, Nishaba was well aware that humans attacked wolves. Not only were these humans crafty, they were able to kill from great distances. All wolves knew was to fear them. Moreover, the last time Nishaba had ventured into the lower valley 2 weeks ago, he had come upon an old human with white hair. At first, Nishaba had thought that the human had been heading toward the pack's den. He had been just about to race home to give warning when the human veered away. No, the deep valley was too dangerous for Nishaba. He needed to find another place to hunt. But where? He looked up. Branches of lodgepole pine, spruce, and still leafless aspen crisscrossed over his head like spiders' webs. Higher still, the sky was gray as his fur. To either side of Ben Valley, mountain peaks glistened with melting snow. To the west, the last of the three-quarter moon, pale white and growing fainter, was sinking into the horizon. Nishaba looked left and right. He listened. He sniffed. He did not hear, smell, or see anything to tell him where any large animals might be. Undecided, the old wolf was standing perfectly still on a quilt of dirty snow and mud, an area spotted with pools of cold water that lay as mute as dark mirrors, when he heard, "Caw! Caw! Caw!" It was the call of a raven. Nishaba tilted his ears forward and listened intently. The call repeated itself. "Caw! Caw! Caw!" As the wolf was aware, ravens had a well-deserved reputation for two things: playing tricks and warning of death. Some wolves believed that birds were enchanted. Whatever the truth, Nishaba was also aware that ravens often knew the location of moose, elk, and deer. For their own reasons, ravens were interested in what wolves hunted. Perhaps, thought Nishaba, this raven is sending me a message. Unfortunately, the bird's call came from deep in the valley, precisely where the wolf did not want to go. Besides, the thought of depending on anyone, another wolf or some bird, was not to his liking. Nishaba was not sure what to do. As a pack leader, he was obliged to defend the pack, to keep all in health, to avoid danger, and to maintain good order. Those duties fulfilled his dignity as leader. His dignity as leader would be respected, and every wolf in the pack would know his or her place. But this would not happen unless his pack was fed. Nishaba looked about again. The sky promised change. He sensed dampness and a northern wind. Though late for snow, spring storms were always a possibility in the high country. That prospect added even more urgency to his need. Snow or rain would make his hunting that much more difficult. The old wolf lifted his right front paw and studied it. The wound was now covered by dried blood. It still gave pain, but not, he decided, so much. He was sure he could still run and still hunt. Garby's taunt, "You are useless," seeped into his thoughts. Simultaneously, the raven's call, "Caw! Caw!" rang out again like the tolling of a bell. Its message, its possible message, that food was to be found was too tempting. Very well, Nishaba would find the raven and see why it had called. Decision made, the old wolf began to trot down into the valley.